The Flash is undoubtedly one of DC's most popular characters, and the Flash TV show definitely helped increase the popularity for said character. However, that being said, that doesn't mean the show was perfect. In fact, it did get a lot of criticism, especially later on throughout the series, which is understandable. As the series runs for almost 10 years, a lot more people are going to critique it more and more because you do get limited with the stories that you can tell. However, with that being said, I recently rewatched the series and definitely noticed a couple of things that to me were just huge missed opportunities. And now, while yes, you can say that some of the missed opportunities were surrounding character deaths or character relationships, like Patty Spivot, yes, I do think Barry Allen should have ended up with her, or at the very least told her, and maybe give us a tragic death with her later on. But that's just because I absolutely love her character. I wanted more of Patty Spivot in the show. However, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm more so talking about storylines that could have changed the very landscape of not only The Flash, but of superhero television altogether. And that's why today we're talking The Flash, biggest missed opportunities in the series. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. All right, so talking about the biggest missed opportunities in The Flash. Now, as I mentioned before, there are a ton of missed opportunities throughout this series. However, I feel like there are realistically two that changed the entire landscape for the series itself. And if these two hypothetical storylines were inserted into the show, it would have not only been a flagship show for the CW and one of the best shows in the entire Arrowverse, but it would have been a top 5 comic book show of all time. Live action and animation, both included. And getting right into it, we have to first understand why the show did have a down tick. Now, a lot of people do point to the end of season 3 going on to a different showrunner in Eric Wallace did contribute to the Flash falling off, the Flash not being as good, not being able to tell as good of stories as they told in those first 3 seasons. However, although I will agree season 4 and 5 aren't that strong, they don't have the level of fall off that the latter half of season 6 and beyond definitely suffer from. And I feel like the biggest reason for that is because very early on in the Flash series, we are teased with something that is going to happen in the future, a future storyline that is going to happen not just to a character, but to the character, the main character of the series. And that tease was that Barry Allen vanishes during Crisis. So when you have that be teased throughout multiple seasons, it being teed up more and more to the point where you have Nora Allen coming back in time to confirm that the Flash is still missing decades after he vanished, just solidifies how big of a story beat that truly was and how much bigger the impact should have had on the show, to the point where one of the season finales literally ended with us seeing the date change for the Crisis event. That should go to show you how monumental this event was for this series. And not only that, a vast majority of season 6, especially the beginning parts of season 6, were spent to prepare for the Flash to vanish. Everyone having to come to terms with that and what the team would do once Barry Allen did vanish, how they would still protect the city, and who would be in charge of Team Flash. Now, as we know, Barry Allen ended up not disappearing. They had a cop-out. Oh, we magically have this 90s version of the Flash. Let's make him vanish because Barry Allen vanished. He still vanished. No, that's horrible. That to me is almost as bad as death baiting, which a lot of anime ends up doing, and it absolutely pisses me off. If you're going to kill off a main character, do it. Go all out. Go for it. Us fans will absolutely love it, especially if you do it in a certain way that works with the story. And to me, this particular thing happening, at least in a certain way, would have worked. Whereas not doing it feels like a cop-out because we spent so much time dedicated to this event happening and so much time teasing this event happening. So when it doesn't happen, a lot of people are left feeling let down by the overall story. And then even worse, on rewatch, Flash, you don't get the same amount of suspense because you know that all amounts to nothing. Rewatching the series, you see those teases for Crisis and then realize it all is meaningless because Barry doesn't actually vanish. So what if in this hypothetical scenario, in this different universe, what if they did make Barry vanish? And I'm not saying it should have happened at the same moment that it was going to happen in Crisis in that specific episode. I do believe you do still have to have those moments between Barry Allen and Oliver Queen once Oliver Queen does die. However, in order to preserve what Oliver Queen just did, the sacrifice he just made, maybe, just maybe, Barry Allen still needs to do something. And maybe that something is him vanishing during Crisis. You could still create a scenario in which Barry Allen has to run on a cosmic treadmill. Maybe you have that scene be later after they defeat the Anti-Monitor. Maybe there was too much antimatter after the Anti-Monitor was destroyed, being dispersed, so they need to use the cosmic treadmill to disperse it in a quickly fashion. Something like that. Again, we are comic book fans, so we will accept something like that. Trust me. I would accept it, and I think a lot of other fans would accept it too. Then what you do is you have Barry Allen vanish. You have him be gone after preserving what Oliver Queen just sacrificed himself to do. But then what do? You can't just end the Flash series, and you're right, you can't. But you know what you can do? You can pass the torch to someone else. Someone else who was sidelined for really stupid reasons. Someone else who should have been a main character on Team Flash. And that character is none other than Wally West. Yes, I believe that after Barry Allen vanished during Crisis, they should have done something similar to what they did in the comics and have Wally West become the Flash. And you have season 6 be about him becoming the Flash. You still have Grant Gustin in the show through the medium of flashbacks with different characters, one in particular being Wally West. You can maybe highlight different adventures they had and different villains they faced off against that now Wally West has to take on all by himself. He has to learn more about the Speed Force all by himself. He no longer has that mentor of Barry Allen. We would get to see this legacy hero have to become a hero in his own right. He would have to become his version of the Flash. Now, the fastest man alive is Wally West. However, Barry Allen wouldn't be gone forever. See, I think he should vanish. However, I think they should do it in a way in which his spirit is just trapped in the Speed Force, scattered throughout time. And then throughout season 6, in addition to getting Grant Gustin in different flashback scenes, we also see him exploring the Speed Force, learning more about the Speed Force throughout time, throughout the past, throughout the present, and throughout the future. So he would come to know all these different events and all these different speedsters that would be affected by the Speed Force. And whether they be heroes or villains, Barry Allen would learn about all of them. And then you have season 6 end with Barry Allen being thrust into another time. And this other time is the future. And we see Nora Allen and Bart Allen. And now we have in season 7, Barry Allen working with these two people to stop something that wasn't supposed to happen. Because Barry was still supposed to be gone. However, for some reason, he comes back much sooner. And that's why he's able to interact with Bart and with Nora. And this villain would be Godspeed. And now you have them going up against this future version of Godspeed with how powerful he is. And you would learn by watching what's happening during the present with Wally that Wally West actually loses to Godspeed and maybe even gets killed by Godspeed. However, Barry Allen, in his Barry Allen fashion, does end up time traveling and makes it back to that point in time to help Wally West defeat Godspeed. However, that final battle, I don't think should be Wally West and Barry Allen against Godspeed. Similar to how they ended season 7 initially, I think it should be the same, except instead of Barry, it's Wally. And Reverse Flash comes back and he helps out Wally. These two people who haven't had a ton of interactions team up to take down Godspeed, and they do it. However, now it makes a lot more sense why the Reverse Flash is going to turn on the Flash. Yes, obviously him turning on Barry would make sense because he hates Barry Allen more than anyone else. However, he also acknowledges how fast Barry Allen is and how capable Barry Allen is. Whereas in this moment, he wouldn't view Wally West as a huge threat. So I think in this moment, you do have Reverse Flash getting the upper hand over Wally West, only for Barry Allen to return. And you still get that moment between Reverse Flash and Barry Allen, where Barry Allen manages to dodge Reverse Flash, and he dodges it with ease. And he makes that comment about getting faster, and that the Reverse Flash didn't get any faster, whereas the Flash has been getting faster. And that would propel them into a lot of the storylines that we saw in season 8, in which the Reverse Flash wants to get revenge on Barry Allen even more so because of the embarrassment that he just suffered at the hands of Barry Allen. And now we would get a team up once again between Wally West and the Flash. Wally West needing to deal with the fact that he is not the main Flash anymore. And where does that leave him? Where does he fit into this story now? And I feel like it would just offer a lot of really cool different interactions. And I feel like a show transitioning their main character and having it be about another character, especially because the Flash is a huge legacy character, I feel like that would just be an awesome, awesome idea and something that I'm hoping we get to see one day. I know a lot of times networks don't want to do that because you do have a lead actor for a reason. However, I feel like if you still have Grant in the show and he is just in flashbacks, he is just in a different time at that moment, it would still fit and it wouldn't be permanent. However, it would be better than us getting all that buildup for Crisis for nothing to actually happen to Barry Allen. No actual ramifications happen for that character. So this would make all those moments rewatching the show much more enjoyable because you know there are actual stakes and actual consequences that these heroes are going to face for being heroes. However, it doesn't end there because although I do think this is the missed opportunity I would like to see changed most and the thing that I think would have enhanced the overall perception of the show the most, I think the other one, a lot more of the general audience would have enjoyed, and even really heavy comic book fans probably would have enjoyed more than the hypothetical storyline I just laid out. And for this other one, it doesn't matter if they went with my hypothetical ending of Crisis or if they went with what we eventually got for the end of season 6, season 7, season 8, because this does surround what happened in season 9. So in season 9, the only things that I would not change is the moment where Barry Allen does go back in time and we get to see him actually save his younger self. We see things from now his perspective, that version of Flash. I think all of that is spectacular and absolutely needs to stay in the show. I think it still should be an episode. And I do agree that Eddie Thawne being the final boss, the final villain, is actually really cool. It just didn't get executed in a great fashion. So I feel like those things still remaining the same would be awesome. However, the big change to me would be surrounding Red Death. And you make Red Death a much more prominent character throughout season 9. This character should get more episodes dedicated to their story. So getting into Red Death, obviously we know it is traditionally Bruce Wayne merging with Barry Allen, and then they do create the character of Red Death, an evil speedster. However, in this, you can't use Batman, so they used Batwoman. But that being said, that is still a change. And while going from Batman to Batwoman isn't a huge change, you could have changed it slightly more and had fans enjoy it way more than they did, because I think it is very much so agreed upon that most of the Flash fan base and most of the comic community hated everything surrounding Red Death as they were portrayed in this particular show. So how do you fix that? Well, first and foremost, instead of having the mask taken off and that line read about "I am vengeance," you don't do any of that. Because although that is an iconic Batman line, that isn't a line that carries a lot of weight in the CW universe, because Batman hasn't been a prominent thing. And even the character of Batwoman was relatively new. And not only that, they did recast the actor for Batwoman after one season, adding to the disconnect for the character. So if hypothetically they change the story just a little bit more, imagine a battle between the Flash and Red Death towards the beginning of season 9, where the Red Death gets the upper hand over Barry Allen, and Barry Allen is down. And then all of a sudden, the Red Death looks at the Flash and says, "You have failed this city," and zooms off. And then they don't have any interaction for the next 1 or 2 episodes, leaving Barry to think, leaving Barry to almost go insane, trying to convince himself that there is no way that what he is thinking is actually true. There's no way the Red Death could be this person. And then an episode or 2 later, we have another battle where the mask gets removed, and it is revealed that the Red Death is none other than Oliver Queen. And yes, that would be a change from the comics. However, you already changed it from the comics, making it go from Bruce Wayne Batman to Batwoman. So why not change it a little bit more? Except this change fits the story better. Not only is Oliver Queen in this universe often compared to Bruce Wayne and often joked about more closely resembling Bruce Wayne than Oliver Queen, he also is the main character of the CW. He also was in the most projects spanned throughout the CW universe. Arrow literally started the Arrowverse. That is why it is called the Arrowverse. And his bond with Barry Allen is so significant that if it were to be revealed to Barry Allen that this evil speedster is somehow Oliver Queen, it would take him through a roller coaster of emotions. And not only that, even us fans now seeing someone we watched for 8 seasons being a hero, being the hero, being a mentor for Barry Allen, being a best friend for Barry Allen, now is this evil entity who is trying to destroy what the original Oliver Queen wanted to preserve. And we would get this clash of ideologies because maybe this version of Oliver Queen does have access to the other memories of the Oliver Queen we know and love, the Oliver Queen we watched over those 8 seasons. And maybe Barry tries to reach that version of Oliver and he just doesn't. So he is forced to fight his best friend, his mentor, the person who told him that he could be a better hero than the Arrow himself. I just feel like that would have given us so many amazing moments and so many great emotional interactions between those two characters, and having to watch Barry struggle with the fact that someone he held in such high regard now has a version of him out there who is this evil, who he has to stop. Someone who partially trained Barry, someone who may know Barry better than Barry knows himself, someone who encouraged him to be a hero is now trying to tear everything down. And the Flash would have to stop him. And we would see that internal struggle within Barry Allen to stop someone he used to hold so near and dear to his heart. And it would inevitably become a battle between best friends. And I feel like after the finale of this battle, Barry would be in a tremendously vulnerable state that would then lead into the negative Speed Force and what inevitably happened with Eddie Thawne and propelling that story forward. But let me know what all of you think. Do you think these two storylines are the two biggest missed opportunities in the show? If not, what do you think were the biggest missed opportunities? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And I'll see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.